I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us a guest that a lot of people have started to ask me to be back on the list. So-and-so, Catherine Austin Fitts, or Catherine Austin Fitts, and so-and-so. I want to hear from Catherine Austin Fitts. A lot of people are talking. I guess I've done giving away my guest here. It's Catherine Austin Fitts at Solari Report. Solari.com is the website. Catherine Austin Fitts, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Hey, Greg, I've been waiting all week to talk to you. There is so much to chew through, but I'm dying to know what you think of a lot of what's going on.
Well, people know what I think. They want to know what you think. And Donald Trump, as far as I can tell, is just under total, all-out assault by the oligarchs and by the criminal crony class that are freaked out that he's president of the United States, which means they're afraid of him. What's going on? What's your ascertain of is he under attack, and how can he win?
Last night on Money and Markets, I called it The Empire Strikes Back. So let's look at what's going on. So, and I'll get to why in a second. Number one, Trump came into Washington with an agenda of things that will really make America great again: tax reform, regulatory relief, infrastructure, and Obamacare. And immediately he got bogged down in those for a variety of reasons, because Congress, if you look at who Congress constituents are, they can't make money solving those things, particularly if it helps regular people. So immediately you bog down on those issues. So he's trying to get his cabinet in place. But in the meantime, you have the empire worried about a variety of things. And let's just talk first about, if you want to slow Donald Trump down or get him, or make sure the only thing he can get through Congress is things that are good for what I call the piggies. Let's talk a little bit about the tactics of how you stop someone, because it's important to understand this at a tactical level. The number one thing you do is first you take out their loyal lieutenants. So a guy comes in, he's got people around him who he trusts, who are good, who knows where the bodies are buried, you take him out. So you try and put space between him and his lieutenants. And if you look at what they've done to Bannon and Kellyanne Cohen in the last 3 weeks, you know, it's an assault on the strong lieutenants. You're trying to put space between Trump and them. That's number one. Number two, Trump's an alpha male. So you look for his weakness and you figure out what his weakness is. And an alpha male will always protect the females in his life. So what you do is you go after the females. So we've seen a brouhaha around accusations made by the Daily Mail against Melania. And she's suing. I'm sure it's Donald Trump saying you have to sue. Big, big mistake. Okay? And that lawsuit is going to get Trump in a whole lot of trouble. If anything, he should settle it and shut it down. It's dangerous. The second thing is we see the brouhaha and dust up over Ivanka. Kellyanne Cohen now really under attack on ethics violations, which she did. She did an ethics violation. But you can see that's Trump's weakness, and so they know to go after it. And if you look at how he's responding, big mistake. You know, so he's going to have to learn how he's working in a matrix structure, and he's playing with the big boys. You know, and it's a dirty game, and he can't make those kinds of mistakes. And so he's going to have to get a tougher skin and play to win in that area. So there are a lot of people around him who can teach him how to do it, but he's got to learn. It's a different milieu than what he's in. So take out the women is the second thing. The third thing is, you know, think of the U.S. bureaucracy and government is huge and very complex, and it's a matrix structure. And so the third thing you want to do is you want to bollocks them up in the bureaucracy and the structure. If you look at how the first immigration executive order that they rolled out was, it wasn't streamlined, it wasn't vetted through the bureaucracy, it wasn't sort of greased to go through. And so, of course, it got all sorts of bollocksed up, and that's given people a chance to stop it. And we can talk about immigration later. The reason you want to bollocks people up with the bureaucracy or the courts, if you can get them in there, is then you sort of bring everything into the mud. You complicate their lives. You make things harder to do. And then suddenly, I call them the piggies. So think of Trump and his team as Titanic Turners. The piggies show up, and of course the Congress is greased to pass the things that the piggies want. So you've got Gary Cohen in there You're trying to take out his lieutenants to make Cohen more powerful and people like him. And then you just start to push through the agenda. So who do we see show up this week? We see George Shultz, Jim Baker, and Hank Paulson show up promoting, are you ready for this, a carbon tax.
That's right. I know. Unbelievable.
Right.
A carbon tax. It's
right. But here's the danger, or Congress wants to do financial regulatory reform, which if it gives relief to the small banks will be great. If it's just another pig fest for the, for the big banks, big mistake. So here's the problem. The problem is if you get stuck in the mud on Make America Great Again and the piggies show up and will help you get something done, the piggies fly through and you've gotten checkmated. Now, it was very interesting. Earlier this week, we saw Matt Drudge, David Stockman, and Steve Forbes just say, wait a minute, what do you mean you're going slower on tax reform? You need, you're in big danger. You need to remember why you got to Washington and get back into Titanic turning. So what you're seeing is a war between the piggies and the Titanic turners. And the question is, can Trump learn how to play the game? I mean, what we've seen in the way they rolled out the immigration is, a lack of experience in knowing how to play the game. Dick Cheney, when he arrived as vice president for George Bush, for the second Bush administration, he's a master at running the bureaucracy and dealing with the courts. And it's that kind of deep knowledge they're missing, and they're going to need it. Now, Pence and if you look at the generals in Pence, you've got the knowledge. You're just going to have to access it. And Trump's going to have to learn. He's not running. He's not a CEO. He's running a matrix structure with very complex checks and balances, and it requires a much more complex and subtle game. He's playing chess now, not checkers.
Do you think that he has to go on the offensive? Warren Pollack has said to me on more than one occasion, he's been a guest in this, bright guy, and he says, at some point he's going to have to start, go on the offense. Is he going to have to go on the offense and put some of these people in check and make them know he's for real?
He's on the offense now. The problem is he's using his bullets up on things he doesn't need to. So he keeps shooting flies with bazookas, and that's not going to work. So let's look at what the pushback, why is the empire striking back? I would say number one, he came out early on immigration before he had his team in place. Not necessarily a good idea, might have paid to wait. But he came out on immigration and he marched right into the heart of what I call the culling machine. So let's go back and look at what happened to Libya or Haiti so that we understand the culling machine. So you drop military into a place like Libya, you destroy the company, you grab the gold, you grab the oil, you grab the resources, but then you cull the population. You skim off the best and the brightest to go work for Google and Goldman Sachs. You skim off the kids, to ship into the pedophilia networks, on and on and on. So you're culling the human talent, from the very top to the very bottom of society in a variety of ways. And if you look at that culling machine, not only do you have people coming in to work in Silicon Valley, but then the Democrats were moving in and targeting people around the country very strategically to make sure that they could win in the Electoral College. So you've got a real re-engineering of human resources in the most horrible way. I call it the culling machine. And of course you have lots of do-gooders making money, getting government grants to help these poor victims, and you don't realize that you're part of literally a harvesting machine that's culling populations and moving people into the United States for a variety of very strategic reasons that have to do with making money for the 1% and nothing to do with making America great again. Now, that is a huge business in operations. It's been going on for decades. The Clintons were at the heart of it. Libya and Haiti are two great case examples that are very documented and we know. And Trump is walking in and saying, oh no, we're going to stop harvesting other countries. We're going to stay back at home. We're going to stop telling people what to do. And we're going to make America great by helping Americans be better, as opposed to shipping in thousands of the best and the brightest from all over the world. Now, we're going to keep, obviously, being open to immigration, but what he's saying is the culling machine is inhuman. And he's right.
And he is right, and that's why they were against Jeff Sessions. They're going to go after the voter fraud. They're going to go after the illegal immigration. They call it undocumented, like it's an accounting error. No, CNN told me before I left, we're going to start using undocumented. They're a bunch of weasels too. They're illegal aliens sucking off our benefits, and then also. He's going after all this mass immigration. He's going after their core, their power structures. What he's doing.
Well, it's a model. It's a very big model,
and that's why they don't want to do any investigation on voter fraud. Both left and right don't want that. They keep telling us it doesn't happen, which is total bullshit.
But let's go back, because this is a bigger thing than because there are many different pieces to it. But remember, the election was a competition between the portion of the deep state that wants to rebuild the United States and is willing to sacrifice empire to do it, versus the group that wanted to sacrifice the United States to keep the empire going.
And that's exactly what Cliff High kind of sums it up too. Exactly how he does it. Go ahead.
That's the struggle, and the reality is the empire team is highly dependent on the culling machine. They're highly dependent on disaster capitalism around the world. And when you try and change that model, that's a very deep change, because you have an entire ecosystem of people who make money from the culling machine. So let me give you an example. We see Charlie Schumer crying big crocodile tears with some Muslim refugees, supposedly from those 7 countries that the hold was put on. The reality is, when we destroyed those 7 countries, Charlie Schumer wasn't screaming or crying big crocodile tears, because he and his pals were making lots and lots of money on destroying those countries.
That's right.
So, right. And now here's the other thing. If we're going to talk about humanitarian issues, it takes, one commentator estimated that the cost of moving or populating the U.S. with 10,000 Syrian refugees, for that same amount of money, you could resettle 122,000 refugees in the Middle East.
Yes, so unbelievable.
I assure you, this has nothing to do with humanitarian goals. Now, all the people who are helping believe it does. I mean, I think they're sincere. They don't they're not looking at the big picture, and they don't understand. They report up to a line that's running a culling machine that makes money on disaster capitalism. So now, as to the voting fraud, there's no doubt, if you look at the funding for the sanctuary cities and where they're being placed, it was basically a way for Silicon Valley, Hollywood, Wall Street, Washington, basically 4 metropolises to have enough clout in the heartlands to control through the Electoral College. So this was a very engineered mass migration of people, and it's not pretty and it's not nice.
I want to go wrap up. How does Trump, quickly, I want to get into 2 things. It's going to be a short interview. How does Trump win, number 1? And then number 2, I want to talk a little bit about the economy. How does Trump win?
Trump wins by staying focused on the real issues. So the U.S. economy needs a variety of different things, including really turning the federal budget around. I did a great interview with John Rappaport. It's up at Larry on Make America Great Again. And we talked extensively about the different things he needs to do this. But the reality is the federal budget has a negative return on investment to taxpayers. It's got to be turned positive. And there's a lot of detail in that, and we can talk through that another time. But you've got to turn the Titanic. And that comes down to tax reform. It comes down to infrastructure. It comes down to Obamacare. Now, part of the problem, the biggest problem in turning the Titanic, Greg, is not Washington, and it's not Congress. The reason Congress is acting as bizarrely as they are, because the American people and all the different constituencies involved refuse to face the truth and refuse to stop being piggies. And it's very interesting. I don't know if you saw it. There was CNN had a debate between Sanders and Cruz on healthcare that was fantastic, because they were getting into the nuts and bolts. And frankly, if I was the White House, I'd start putting up websites that have simulations and games that show them all the information they need. The American people need to start to really engage in, okay, what are the nuts and bolts? Because you've got to get into the details to solve the problem, and you've got to go outside the beltway, because the the refusal to buy into something that's economically feasible is throughout the entire country and throughout all the corporate constituencies. And you're not going to be able to solve it in Congress. Congress wants to get reelected, and the American people are going to keep throwing them out because nobody wants to face reality. So there needs to be a reality facing. I hope CNN does 100 more of those. Apparently they got great ratings on it. I was amazed. You know, and CNN has a lot to do to redeem themselves. So.
Yes, they are fake news. As I've been saying, I used to work there, and the crap they've pulled, I would never pull as an investigative reporter. I had a journalistic bar to get over. I had a legal bar to get over. I had a standards and practice bar to get over. Those bars don't exist there because people, they wouldn't have pulled the thing with that story that Jim Acosta did if they had to cross those bars. Wouldn't have done it. I mean, that was a big fat lie. Sit in the front row, throw a pie in President-elect's face at the time.
Right.
Okay, one last thing. So, okay, go ahead.
So Trump needs to stick with Titanic turning. So he needs to stick to the big, deep, difficult issues and not let the piggies, you know, because Trump's danger is if he gets bogged down on the big issues, the piggies are going to come in behind and say, you know, we're men of action. Let's do this privatization and that privatization and give the banks big regulatory relief and it'll juice the stock market. You know, the pigs are all lined up to get their agenda done and they'll grease it through Congress. So Trump and his people are going to have to stick on that and they're going to have to make sure that they can't get played off. He's got to make sure that he doesn't let the shriek-o-meter destroy his top lieutenants and put space between him and them. Otherwise, the pigs are going to step in and run things.
I hope they're watching this interview. I hope they are. They're good people, and they're under extreme attack. Oh, finally. Larry Fink, one of the biggest asset managers in the world, I think he's the biggest, and other people are starting to freak out about the economy. And, you know, I have to tell you, I have to give you some credit, lots of credit to you. Yeah, you were one of about 2 or 3 different people, all women actually, that said that, well, one of them, Nenner was the one, but you and Nomi Prinz, the same, all you guys said, not yet, nope, not going to crash yet, nope, not this year, nope, nah, not 16, a little bit worse, but you, at the beginning of this year, or at the end of last year, you thought 17, you know, we're going to have the stuff hit the fan, and one of the big rating agencies is worried about a global catastrophe from the Trump administration. Can you handicap, does he have to crash the system to fix it? Will it crash around him anyway? Is he the guy to be in the crash? Or are we not going to have a crash this year in 2017?
There's no way to tell. If you look at the annual wrap-ups, as you can tell from the scenarios we did for our scenario planning for 2017 and beyond, there's tremendous variation. And it's very important as an investor that you're prepared for all the different scenarios because now we can't just assume more slow burn. There's going to be tremendous variation. But here's what's important to understand. What's killing this economy is corruption and lawlessness. That's what's killing the economy. We have used lawlessness and corruption to centralize. We've done everything we can to encourage to debase the general population. You know, Larry Fink should be ashamed of himself. If there's a problem, you know, he's part of it. And maybe he ought to look in the mirror. So we need to deal with these problems. Now, Sessions was approved 2 days ago, and then yesterday the White House signed an executive order, you ought to read it, that basically gives broad encouragement to the bureaucracy to address human trafficking, drug trafficking, and other transnational crime. Now, given what we know was going on over the last year in Washington, it'll be very interesting to see where this goes. I would handicap the chances of a major pedophilia scandal in the United States and Washington this year at 50% or better.
Wow. And so the pedophilia scandal is for real.
The challenge before us is not will the markets be up or down this year. The challenge before us is will we have a human society or an inhuman society. Now, Donald Trump, as imperfect as some people may think he is trying to fight for human society. And the most important thing we need to get worked out in 2017 is to come down hard and clear for a human society, because I'm assuring you, in a slavery system, there is no such thing as a positive return on investment to taxpayers. And if you look at how bad the push for an inhuman society has become, it's serious. I just put up again on my website last week the interview with Aaron Rousseau talking about how the Rockefellers had told him that, or one of the Rockefellers had told him that the plan was to microchip people and use all digital cash, so if people didn't behave, they could turn off their money. These people are planning a very inhuman society. So it's very important that we not worry about what the market's going to do this year and start worrying about whether or not we have a human culture. Because if we're not going to have a human culture, trust me, you don't care what your stock portfolio is going to be.
Catherine Austin Fitts, always great. Thank you for coming on for the update. I really appreciate it. I can see, when people start saying, I'd like to have Catherine Austin Fitts on, I thought, yeah, I like to. I got a lot of questions for her too. Catherine Austin Fitts, thanks for coming in and taking us to school. You're a brilliant person. You're one of the most intelligent people. I don't want to say most intelligent women. No. You're one of the most intelligent people that I have on. Period. At the end. Incidentally, when I was a little kid in the second grade, all the girls were smarter than the boys, and I just thought naturally girls were smarter than boys, and maybe they are.
You know something? The number one thing we can do to make America great again is stop all this divide and conquer stuff between men and women.
Good point.
Men love women, women love men.
Correct.
That's how it works.
Yes, ma'am. Catherine Austin Fitts, the solarareport.com. You just did your big wrap up. There's lots of good information. There are podcasts.
Fabulous.
Do what?
It's fabulous. Can I come back to talk about the wrap up?
Yeah, you can come back to talk about it, but I'd rather people go on and buy it because it's. I've shown some of your. I've shown some of your wrap ups and some of your materials. It's better than my site, but thank you for coming on. But you also have great interviews, in-depth interviews with a lot of folks talking about the what's going on. Joseph Farrell, I listened to the interview between you and him about the setting of Trump's cabinet and all that, which is still ongoing. I mean, really great stuff. So you guys to check it out. Go ahead.
I just have to tell you, the first quarter report is called, we're working on it already, it's called Washington Turns in a New Direction, People and Policies to Watch.
Good. People should come on and we just scratched the surface a little bit. You have a lot of information. I can't believe you put as much information out as you do. So people should go on and become a subscriber or go on Solar Report. You pay me nothing for this. I just think you're good. That's why I have you on. Catherine Austin Fitts, Solari.com, the Solar Report. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thanks, Greg. It's terrific. It's always a pleasure. You have a great day.